Likutei Torah, Parsha Shemini, page Yud Ches. It says, Lev Yosen zayitzarten l'sachik bei. The pasuk says, Lev Yosen Hashem formed to play with. So Isa b'medrash Rabbi Parsha Shemini, and the medrash in the Shemini says, Behemoth Lev Yosen. The behemoths and the Lev Yosen and Kanig and Shal Tzadikim Lasud Lavi. That's like the circus of Tzadikim Lasud Lavi. Behemoth nates it's the Lev Yosen Bekarnav. Behemoth means the Shorabor is going to whack the Lev Yosen with its horns. The Lev Yosen nates is the behemoth Besampirin. And the Lev Yosen is going to whack the animals with its fins. And then we learn how Kel Shechten. Everybody can shecht. Ubachel shechten, and you can shecht with everything. Ula'elam shechten chutz mimagel kotzin. Except you're allowed to shecht with any type of instrument except as a saw, a zigzag instrument, because it doesn't cut the simanim well. Ad chidish teira me'it, ad chidish teira me'it teitze. That a new teira is going to come, the teira of Moshiach. So he says, what's going to happen then? Because l'chayra, the Lev Yosen's fins are not smooth; they're like zigzag. So he says, "What Torah Chadash mitaytei shakadosh baruch hu yater os shchita zu sheyishchit al Lev Yosen es habehema b'sampirov." The lost love, the Lev Yosen is going to shech the shorabor with its fins, which are rough edged. So until now, the Gemara says you're not allowed to shech like that. But also love a Torah Chadash mitaytei Hashem is going to be matus such a shchita. And Behem, as the Medrash says, Eze ilu behemis elu. That's the inyan of Shorabor. Okay, basically, la'atzah love there's going to be the Shorabor with the Lev Yosen, and they're going to kill each other. Literally, they're going to kill each other, and there's going to be a big meal. But this is going to be the circus for tzaddikim la'atzah love watching this show, so to speak. So he says, understand what is the circus of the Lev Yosen with the Sharabat. So he says, there's two types of tzaddikim. There are hidden tzaddikim that are hidden tzaddikim, shavedos and beruchnias. Their avodah is more spiritual, kavanas alev. In the kavan of the heart, which is a very, very lofty level, like Rabbi, like it says, when Rabbi was in the cave for 13 years, okay, there was no way he could have done a lot of mitzvahs. Why? Okay, in other words, what did he sustain himself from? A boxer tree with a well of water. He didn't do that, those levels. So how did Rabbi, it says in Chassidus in Kabbalah, that Rabbi and the Maida did the mitzvahs ruchnias. The Rebbe, I mentioned this, the Rebbe once said to somebody from Russia upstairs by one of the meals, that when he was asking them if they were able to get matzah and all those things, if they're able to get it, and he said, it was Rabbi Zananis. He told the Rebbe, yeah, but he really told, later he came down and said he didn't want to make the Rebbe feel bad, but many times they didn't get it. So the Rebbe said to him then at the meal that the Jews in Russia at that time under communism were like Rashbi and the Maida. They did the mitzvahs beruchnias. So he said, like Rashbi, how did he didn't do physical mitzvahs. So Rabbi and the Maida did those mitzvahs beruchnias. He accomplished the same thing mitzvah beruchnias. And he said, "V'chein ho Arizal gam ki mevchina zu." And the Arizal was also on that level. Okay, just skip the two lines. V'abeis, and the second level, im eisim tzadikim shoyu begilui, shavedos and begashim bekim mitzvahs maisis, v'samachta b'chagecha, which is Amshachas Erdas El Yonim, Meyadei Hashem, which were the Meyadei Hashem, which are lofty levels of Kedusha, Vasim Choagili Erin Tzabor Shanim Shalom Izgalim, So the Rabbi says like this: there are tzaddikim that their avodah was ruchnis primarily, and there are avodah of tzaddikim that were primarily begashmis. Yichudim with the gashmistic things. And he said, "I'm shachazu why they mitzvahs of the dafka. Those mitzvahs are dafka through action mitzvahs. Kamay merazal shebei bazman abayis in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Ein simcha lebabasa. Only simcha agree with meat, which was the Shalmi simcha. Shoym evil b'chol Yom Tiv. And now achshav ein simcha ela b'yayin kudel kam. Now we don't have the korbanos, so that today's simcha is with yayin. Okay. So he says like this: V'ikeram shochet b'Pesach aydei matzah. Shvuos was to matan Torah, and sukkah is up aydei sukkah v'lulav minav. U'baladi zeh eyav shalam sheklau. Okay. So the Rashbi, like he says in the parentheses, now the Rashbi came to the level of Levyasan, and the other tzaddikim is Shor Abad. Levyasan is in the ocean. It's Alma Diskasia. And the Shor Abad is in dry land. That's Alma Disgalia. So again, it's Yam, Yabosha, Levyasan, Shor Abad, all those things. So he said many tzaddikim like the Arizal and the Rashbi did the mitzvahs and the Ruchni is the Ka'ifin completely. And other tzaddikim did it begashmis. It's impossible to reach Elokusi's barich aydei aveda gashmis. It's very difficult to reach the aveda of, like he says, unrearing. It's impossible to touch the level of Elokus through gashmis al aveda ruchin shel tzaddikim and now. Only, in other words, in order for the tzaddikim to be Mekayim mitzvahs and yichudim and gashmis, it was only through the tzaddikim that did the beruchnius. They're called creations of the yam, kadogim elu like fish. Shayam echas alem, that the yam covers them. All you see is the yam. Kachem ibchinis alma diskasya. And he says, v'yeshnem b'chol dar v'dar in many generation. Shem tzaddikim shebeseser, which are tzaddikim that do the aveda beseser. It's the concept perhaps of the tzaddikim nestorim, the hidden tzaddikim. Like David HaMelech was mechaber Torah shemayel b'kodesh brichu. And that's the level of Levyasan. This level of tzaddikim beruchnis is the level of Levyasan. Why? Because what is Levyasan? Levi, Levia, accompaniment. Shulashin is chabras. Like it says, Apam Yilova Isha Eli, when Levi was born. Leah said, Apam Yilova, now my husband would connect to me. So Levyasan, Levia, it's, by the way, it simply means you accompany somebody, you're connecting to them.
Doing this word by Ruchni, it has nada over doing this word by Gashima?
Those tzaddikim, yeah. Not me and you. For a lot of reasons. Besides the Vamech Kum Tzaddikim, but besides that pasuk, the reality is no, we don't, yeah. Okay, so he says, V'hinei Gimel Shoyes Reviers Hu Nikra Samach L'Mincha. 3 hours of the last quarter is called Samach L'Mincha. K'ri'is B'Gemarish Parsha Avi P'sachim. Yitzchak tikin tfilas mincha. Yitzchak is a level of mincha. And he says, "V'yadua the Yitzchak ulashim schek v'schek." Yitzchak is a level of laughing and playing. They could say tzchek asalikim. Lochein az yeshiv u'misrachik im levyas. Therefore, in the last 3 hours of the day, yeah, because the day is right, there's 3 hours shifts. So the last quarter, he says, he calls it Gimel Shoyes Revius, the last 3 hours, because 12 hours, the quarter is 3 hours. So the last 3 hours, Tzamach L'Mincha, that's the level of Yitzchak, and that's, the Gemara said, the Medrash says, Yeshiv Mesachikim Levyasa. That's when Hashem, when the Zay and the Medrashim go through Hashem's day, the first that they're learning Torah, then this, and anyway, the last 3 hours, he's playing with the Levyasa, whatever that means. How does this get to the Aved of Yitzchak? Yitzchak was also a tzaddik nister, because what did he do? He dug wells, the water is hidden, and he's revealing hidden water. She'inyan Allah Osman, which is a surosa de l'satam, v'inem b'vor, b'makam achir. Another places in Chassidus is explained, inyan aniska b'gemara. Pajvahoyim shmaya l'nikra dayin eisen shel makim, k'shel k'deboy. The Gemara in Bracha says that the two parshas of Shema, the first one is called Eisen Retzein Shel Makim. They do the will of Hashem. And Vayim Shemaya isn't. So why not? Because in the first parsha it says B'chol Me'edecha. B'chol Avavcha, B'chol Nafshecha, B'chol Me'edecha. In the second parsha it says B'chol Avavcha, B'chol Nafshecha. So the Aveda really Eisen Retzein Shel Makim, creating a will of Hashem, is only when you have Ma'id, the bleak Gvul. And he says, why? Because Leinama B'chol Me'edecha, like Parsha Shema, and that's called Eisen Retzein Shel Makim. But that accomplishment of bringing Seviv to Mamala, as he says, that's the way of revealing the hidden worlds, Seviv Kol Almin into Mamala, that can only be done through B'chol Me'edecha. Why? Because in order to connect two opposites, to reveal Seviv in Mamala, and the Mamala stays Mamala, and just with the Gilui of Seviv, you have to reach and tap into a level B'chol Me'edecha. So that level is Eisen Retzein Shel Makim. What do you mean? They create the will of Hashem, that Seviv comes into Mamala, because normally it doesn't. The Ratzana to create the Ratzana of Hashem, that Seviv comes into Mamala, has to only be through B'chol Me'edecha.
That's only the first paragraph.
Yeah. Second one is Eisen Shalei. And therefore in the second parsha it's possible, if you don't listen, then you're going to have all the punishment. That's the level mentioned here. In order to reach this level of Pam Yilove, that's only through Aveda Ruchnis of Tzaddikim that are called Nun Yama, because that's Alma Diskasya, that's the level of B'chol Me'edecha. Even though it says Im Shemaya Tishmu, even though it says Im Shemaya Tishmu, nevertheless it doesn't say B'chol Me'edchem, B'chol Me'edecha. Now that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, there's no more joy in the world. In fact, in Shchonach, as people don't care, it says, you're not allowed to laugh or things like that. Like it says in Parshas Truma, that the river dries up, or like the Ramaz writes, is the level of Yaakov. Okay. So he says the Pearl, there's a tzaddikim of Nuna Yama, there's a tzaddikim of Yabasha. The only way that tzaddikim of Yabasha could work and be mamshech elukus into Gashmis, through the Gashmis to the mitzvahs, through the aved of tzaddikim of Nuna Yama, the ruchniistic tzaddikim. Va'egesh terapi mashakos v'kisi arizal. Ayidei teiro mitzvahs yamam shechichud zun, but laham shechichud avah, which is ayir ar chodesh me'intzah baruch, that's two Mesiras Nefesh davka. In other words, like this. It says in Kisei Arizal, when we do a mitzvah, or we do it once a day, or we say the bracha, whatever, we're making yichud and l'shem yichud kushabrichu shchintei. Kushabrichu is all, shchina is malchus, right? Yichud zon, zav and nukva. Kushabrichu and shchintei. He says, mitzvahs can only be miyached zav malchus. But to be miyached chochma and bina, that takes only Mesiras Nefesh. And that's what those tzaddikim, the Rashbi, had to run and hide in the cave for 13 years. There was a lot of Mesiras Nefesh. Right, I'm saying because mitzvahs can only be miyachad kutshabricha and zah.
I didn't get the last one.
In order to combine the 6 spheres of Malchus, that you do through mitzvahs. But to unite Chochmah and Bina, that is only through Mesiras Nefesh. It's very simple because the world is Midas. Hashem created the world with Midas. The 7 Midas created the world, right? Shabbos is Malchus. So if you want to bring a Lukus into the world, Yichud Zun, it's through mitzvahs. Gashmistic mitzvahs. But to be Miyachad Aval, which is higher than world, that's through the level of Torah. So that's the love, Mesiras Nefesh for Torah.
You have a bit of bitul or Mesiras Nefesh when you do a mitzvah.
It depends what the love of Mesiras Nefesh we're talking about. About the Mesiras Nefesh. And he said, V'zel davki inyin krishva limsim nafshi biyachad. That's the level of the first parsha of Shema, is Hashem Echad to be Mesiras Nefesh. Okay, V'zel masha kosakan. That what says here, Shem shachuz and davka de ruchnias. Shem b'chinas l'vyasin l'chaber yesh la'ayin b'chinas Mesiras Nefesh. In Echad, okay, that's the Avodah of Yosef. By the way, this is the circus, Los of Love, that there's going to be the Gil of Yamin Yabasha. That's why Kriyas Yamsuf, interesting, Kriyas Yamsuf, it starts Az Yashir Mesha, and the Gemara says it doesn't say Shard. Should have said, oh, sure, Mesha, then past tense. Yosh Mikan, Rashi brings it, that Mikan, Tkisa Mesim in Atera. The Mesha Beni is going to sing eventually, Loss of Loving. Yeah? Whereas the Baal HaTurim says, Yoshir is Yud Shir. It means there are 9 times in history, in Tanakh, there's 9 times they sing Shira. And the 10th one is going to be with Mashiach. So why is Tchias HaMesim alluded to in Kriyas Yamsuf? Because it's a similar thing of Yam and Yabasha, but Los Loves it mean a higher level of Yam and Yabasha. Lev Yosin and Sharabar. Gam Yeshleimar al Pvei des Ruchnias and Shamas of the Yosin. Like it says in Orach Chaim, She's Pashtus HaGashmias, that a person removing himself completely from Gashmias is similar L'maylis HaNevuah. Is similar to Nevuah. 1 second. Like it says in Priyas Chaim, Im Yisidei Shmenim Shonim. Okay, so he says like this. That's the same thing that in order to come to Nevuah, it says in the Navi by Shmuel, I think it says, Vayavshet es begoda vayisnabei. He took off his garments and he prophesied. So what does that mean? Because the concept of levushim came about because Chatzidas. So in order to come to the level of nevuah, that you're getting this revelation from above, there has to be the limit yavshit as begotten. You have to get rid of the Chatzidas stuff. And then you can do nevuah. So it says that when a person, the Rambam writes also, in order for a Navi to get nevuah, he has to remove himself from Gashmi. That's why most Nevi'im get it when they sleep, because when they sleep, the neshama goes up. So it's removed from Gashmis. From the Gashmis to the body, and then they're able to have nevuah. So it says that's the level of those Ruchniistic Tzaddikim. Okay. See, now he says, so he says, what does Hashem do in those hours? Yeshiv umalamet tinekar shabeis rabban. Okay, this is all, by the way, go. Oh, we learned this all, go. Okay, whatever. Okay. Achlias ki elam hazeh el gashmi, but because this world is a gashmistic world, lochein tzarich letzadikim, shavei dosim begashmis. But in this world, those tzadikim, the ruchniistic tzadikim, like Rashbi, that didn't do physical mitzvahs, he did it to all ruchnias. The problem is, he says, this world is a gashmistic world. So we need physical mitzvahs. You can't do ruchniistic mitzvahs. We need gashmistic mitzvahs. Ki elam hazeh gashmi. Lekach tzarich letzadikim shavei dosim begashmis. Lekayim mitzvahs ma'asiyos, like as Chazal say, amud echad v'tzadik shmei, she'olav ha'olam omed. There's one pillar that's called tzaddik, and that's what the world stands on. Tzaddik is seidelam, no, the tzaddik, the foundation of the world. So he says like this, bottom line is, there are neshamas of tzaddikim that do ruchnias, which is the level of yam, which is the level of yosan. Then you have the level of shorabar, the yabosha, the tzaddikim that do mitzvahs begashmis. He says, but yet at the same time, v'chol ma sheyesh b'yabosha yesh b'yam, ki b'mesarach liyas havaha. But because Hashem created half the world yam, half the world yabosha, and the Gemara says, kol ma sheyesh b'yabosha yesh b'yam, whatever is in the yabosha is in the yam. So therefore, bottom line is, you need both avodas. Even though this world is primarily gashmistic world, so primarily you need avodah gashmis, physical Torah mitzvahs. But the fact that there's yam and yabosh even now, means there has to be the avodah ruchnis and avodah gashmis. And he says, ki hinei hilach hatzadikim, that are called Nunayama, the going of tzaddikim. That's called, those hidden tzaddikim, like Rashbi and the Arizal, that did Aveda Beruchnias. He neflo v'gavoy ma'id. He says, al derech moshel hadogim shetosim b'yam. That dogim that swim in the ocean, hem sh'obetisa achas magil, maila g'doy lahabim, Aveda tzaddikim shebegashmis simcha b'basa. He says, when they swim in the ocean, besides the fact they do go quicker, but with one movement, they move a lot. That means they accomplish much more than the tzaddikim that are on the dry land. The shorabar tzaddikim. Shakol l'matib madregim, because everything is much slower. Mashenkin iluchim shekamoshel daga yam. Sheshat mikseya elamakaseyu, but the dogim go from one end of the world to the next. Those tzaddikim, the hidden tzaddikim, the do the avodah beruchnis, with one movement, elamagila maila maila, vein the klabuchinis is slavas sichas adam like avodah tzaddikim agash mitzimcha b'basa. In other words, like this, the tzaddikim that do the avodah begashmis, they have, like he says, that's islahavus, to move in gashmis, you get sweated, right? But the fish don't sweat. So it is no avodah of islavus and the soul, fiery avodah. They're very calm when they do mitzvahs. You find this even in the world. You find tzaddikim today. They do mitzvahs, they're going all over the place. And then, like the Rebbe, that was very calm. The mitzvahs very calmly, simply. No, even davening. You have many tzaddikim that would chuckle and shake and, move around. And the Rebbe didn't move at all. He basically stood, doesn't move. Didn't chuckle either.
How is this shaykh to Shemini?
Because this medrash is in Shemini.